So, circumstances of this world have beckoned. We discuss these. The greatest film series of all time. Definitely the greatest trilogy, then quadrilogy. Now, greatest pentology. And Australian or otherwise, even the Americans agree that we did it better. Now, there's three major films discussed as the major masterpieces in the year of our Lord 1979 AD. Of course, Coppola's Apocalypse Now, Tarkovsky's Stalker, and Ridley Scott's Alien. There should be ought to be five major films discussed from 1979. Along with those three, they're as good as everyone says they are, maybe even better, perhaps. And then there's also, of course, George Miller's Mad Max. There's also Bill Forsyth's That Sinking Feeling. We've discussed that already. However, actually, as of now, with this upload, we'll have discussed all five of those major masterpieces of that year, 79. And Mad Max 79 is a masterpiece. A lot of the major attributes which are celebrated of the sequel film were pioneered here initially, definitely. Max is like what Once Upon a Time in the West was to spaghetti westerns, or Dawn of the Dead to grindhouse features of North America in general during the 1970s. Mad Max is the equivalent for the exploitation films of Australia, and really of the North Americas as well. I feel like you have the ultimate apotheosis of kind of cops versus robbers, revenge flicks, cars, action slash bikey films, just totally funneled into this opus, Miller's Mad Max here. I'm going to demonstrate to you all how I believe Mad Max, like the first two Star Wars films, that is Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, every scene is a great scene. We can also say this about certain comedy screenplays, such as Robinson's Whitnale and I. Will Reiner's This Is Spinal Tap. Every second of Spinal Tap is genius, actually. The opening credits and soundtrack alone are demonstrative of this film's character. Plus that very 2000 AD logo right there. The sequel wound up being profoundly influential in that world of comics. Perhaps even this first film made a roundabout impact on the 2000 AD-esque comic books. Assuming this film was shown in the UK, I'm not certain about that. Obviously, infamously, it was shown in America with a very bizarre, embarrassing dub. Every cast member in this film was dubbed by an American actor, with the exception of Rabina. I can't remember her surname. She portrays the nightclub singer. She was not dubbed. She's putting on a yank vocal anyway. Anyway, has the Mad Max is the character of those 70s Australian low-budget garage genre epics, and then some. Note David Egby's superlative photographic character, and also certain superlative Hitchcockian edits here and there. Think the opening edits which take you from a cityscape shot of Phoenix, Arizona to that one little inconspicuous building where Marion and Sam are having their love affair. The series of edits which leads you in Mad Max toward the kind of outskirts of the area to the road signs, and then to the street itself where the two Mobile Force MFP officers are hanging out, one of them observing a loving couple via his scope, the other sleeping in the car, the Big Bopper. Anyway, so we have a vague... Well, I want to say, this would be remembered as a masterpiece in its own right, even without sequels, I feel. It's such a determined production, every frame brimming with brazen creativity. It's a vague Australian 70s goofy idea of a rundown dystopia. No logic to how it got there, it just does. Quasi-satirical even. So 70s in that biker leather bloke sense that it shakes you. Ambitious, dangerous, fluidly coordinated car chase action. This is the entire Knight Rider intro, so cinematic and timeless. One of the most effective in the medium's history. Knight Rider on the radio, given that he's hijacked a police vehicle. Too good to be true, almost. Americans aren't willing to praise an Australian film to the same degree as one of theirs, because it is far better than most of their equivalents, or any of them, quite easily. So cinematic, it begs questioning how nothing from America has come quite as close, frankly. Then the bookend scene of Max at home is just perfect for what it needs to be. And it's interesting, this film is very beautifully, deliberately local, meant for an Australian audience, assuming international audiences will accept it on the conviction of its storytelling and execution of action set pieces. You know, there's like similarities to American cop revenge car chase films can be made and are worth nothing. Mad Max as the behemoth of them is far more relevant. You know, the true emperor of those genres. And then, of course, we've got the introduction to the car scene, absolute beauty. And then it's such a memorable, kind of grand male camaraderie moment. Then Fifi listening in makes the scene even better. Such a good narrative touch. Miller and James McLaughlin's screenplay is very concerned with feasibility, critical scrutiny, creativity, and inserting charisma into potential cliches. It's as though you could have been given the plot synopsis, the outline of what Mad Max is going to be, and delivered some rubbish. But Miller hired this journalist named financial journalist of all people, James McLaughlin. And it's interesting how an outsider to these sort of genre films is like, okay, well, how can we make these smart when they're obviously dumb? And it's a very good piece. Like, even reading this would be impressive. It's like, let's make this fucking film. Damn. You know, and why a lot of this film has sentimental value to me, obviously it would to blokes of that generation, but here's the thing. It's effectively my father's generation. It summarizes the passions and interests of an entire generation of Australian men. And so Mad Max is always a great time capsule of their Australia, essentially. The kind of Australia they grew up with, the camera grain, the sort of outdoorsy, bizarre, surreal camaraderie about it all, the strangeness of it, its sense of humor, the pre international influence throughout the 90s onward, pre Americanization of culture. Terrific stuff. And it as a kid, you're always like thinking about the era where your parents were younger, because they talk about it so much as being this fascinating sort of ethereal time. And watching Mad Max, you kind of get that, along with watching older episodes of Spy Force very late at night. But Mad Max is a lot more fun, I think. Those of you outside Australia don't know what Spy Force is. That's fine. And then now that crash scene aftermath, this scene transition is such a beautiful moment of entertaining, seamless exposition. Every scene in Mad Max, no matter how brief, is a great scene/moment. Especially take this, the Toe Cutter gang introduction. Too good, just spellbinding. All of this gang behaviour is a radical extrapolation of wild larrikin Australian male culty hooliganism. You've seen Wake in Fright, you know, and even if you're an Australian or Kiwi, you may get the idea that way also. For us living in this country, we live it. Like, you guys always watch it and you think, oh wow, like, you know, you've done this movie about, like, you know, Australia, these weird movies, you know, trying to homage ours, you know. Oh, cool. Good on you guys. Good on you, buddies. But really, no, this is life for us. This is us doing art for us. Like, we're not trying to pander to you, to some yank wank. Like, you go fuck off. Leave our culture alone. Anyway, the horrifying, traumatic car attack scene. Then you got Max and Goose at the aftermath, and then of course after that, you've got the Toe Cutter and Bubba moment. Toe Cutter and Bubba are so cool. The only villain and henchman that compares is, well, the sequel's counterparts, really, Humongous and Wes. Then there's the great Johnny going free sequence. Johnny reunited with gang. Tremendous moment. Now, the final sequence of Goose, too gripping, so tragic, and assertively composed. The unforgettable hospital moment. Max then at home. Max and Fifi scene. One of my 5 favorites in the film, honestly. They say people don't believe in heroes anymore. It's just, the film's been going at such a momentum, and then you insert such a kind of one of these like pseudo profound speech moments, but it's kind of like taking the piss out of one of those scenes, but also acting as that scene. Absolutely fantastic. Like, an Australian film on this budget shouldn't be as good as it is, but it's better than most films ever made. And people who disagree is like, I'm somewhat trepidatious about the violence in the film. Somewhat trepidatious. You know, all those epics, silent films, westerns. You know, the violence was unrealistic, sloppy, and choppy, and wasn't relevant to kind of being honest about the real world. You know, I'm somewhat trepidatious. These films, they glorify violence. They make it seem exciting, you know. It's just like, listen, like, war and adventure films made those seem exciting, and then films came along which depicted them more honestly, and we're fine with that to a point because we think that there's some sort of higher purpose in there, and we're concerned that people will watch Mad Max and then become violent criminals. I think the people who become violent criminals don't bother watching films, at least not anymore. I mean, back then it was a fun recreational activity. Now it's more of a hobbyist phenomenon. People who become violent criminals think doing things other than violent crimes like lame and gay or whatever. At least in Australia, like that's what I can tell you. Like I can explain to you the Australian male pathology, and I'm not wrong about anything I say about the Australian male pathology. Positive or negative, and mostly negative. Sorry, guys. Most issues of the Australian male can be summarised as, oh, I don't want the guys at the pub to make fun of me or joke that I might be like a homosexual or something. Oh no, God forbid. Now I claim to be very progressive. Even now, it's like, oh, I've got nothing against anyone of any differing sexuality. Oh no, don't call me gay. No, never. That's fucking. I'd rather be dead. Yeah, interesting ally. And on the other side of the coin, it's of course, I don't want people at the socialite cretin gathering to make fun of me and think I'm like lame and that I don't care what other people think of me. Oh, listen, like, I've never been the biggest fan of people, you know, and you know people have treated me a certain way over the years, and so I feel as though I don't take for granted the potential capacity of people to be very cruel, wicked, just self-serving, and totally unscrupulous, just completely wicked and unprincipled. And so, you know, as a result, when I see other people who I know have been treated cruelly by people, the rest of the species, in their past, and I see them, probably as a result of it, in a way, frankly, trying to appease and want to be liked by the rest of the population, I hate that, because it's enabling the rest of our species to carry out even more bullying and harassment. Because, oh, look, you know, the people who are victimizing and belittling and berating, they really want us to like them. That's my problem. I see, you know, some people might think, oh, what do you care if those people want to be liked? My problem is it's enabling this continuing cycle of wicked, vile abuse in this country. I might even just move on from this point, because most of you watching aren't Australian. It's not relevant to any of you, and that's probably good, actually. Look, Australia is a great place to live. It's just the Australians. That's the real thing. The fake Australians, not the traditional custodians. I mean, look, I consider myself an Australian rather than a fake Australian, and I'm not a traditional custodian. But it's just, like, most Australians, it's not even that they're racist. Like, they are / can be. It's just they hate things that are, like, different. Like, even if Australia was just full of Caucasians, there'd still be just harassment, abuse, and just nastiness. It's just, it can be a really ugly fucking place, sadly. The point I'm trying to make is Phillip Adams is basically garbage, and I find it cute how, like, the moment he of that sort of self-righteous, absurdly rich lefty class, you know, a champagne socialist class. I love how people say like, oh, people make call us champagne socialists, but who doesn't like champagne? At one time, it might have been relevant to call you a strawberry socialist when strawberries were the the gifts of the very, very wealthy classes. You know what the fuck we mean? As a socialist, I say this. By the way! Anyway, so we'll continue our notes of Mad Max. Not being Philip Adams is fucking fantastic. I feel good! Anyway, so now the next scene of Mad Max. Johnny reunited with gang. Tremendous moment. The final sequence of Goose. Yeah, hospital moment. Max then at home. Max and Fifi scene, one of my 5 favourites in the film, honestly. I didn't realise I was as far into my notes as I was. Anyway, but the initially blissful trip up north for Max's holiday break. Any of the mortifying biker attack at the ice cream shop then. At Maze. Okay, so it's worth mentioning here. I don't mean to be. Jessie is such a weapon. Jessie is the ideal Australian woman. Her sense of humour, her beautiful tone of skin, tanned by the sun, that kind of glossy, sun-kissed hair. Not sun-kissed as in I think that normally means a redhead, but it's kind of hair that's been, you know, affected by the sun its whole life, and it sort of, it breaks a bit, it curls up, it frizzles a bit. It's perfect. She's more beautiful than any American actress. Sorry, guys. Jessie at the beach then with the dog. And then the rest of the film was on nightmarish traumatic spiral. Not much like it. The apotheosis, as I claimed, of course, of 70s revenge exploitation. Certainly the most affecting and cruel of revenge movie motivators, definitely. Death Wish, nasty. Josie Wales, ruthless. Rolling Thunder, unthinkable. And unbelievable. Waste disposal hand forced into the sink. Undeniably, over the top. But Mad Max? Vaguely sadistic, even. No distracting score, no prosthetic gore. Just a sound effect, a considerate edit, and us having more care for Jessie, it being toward the end of the film, than the stock archetypal families of Kersey Wales or William Devane's. That scene of the bikie stealing fuel from that tanker sets the tone for the whole series, maybe more than any scene in this film, or at least for its sequel, which is a film that defines the series most of all. Then, as Max picks off the bikers, such riveting, predatory, shamelessly carnivorous, yet captivating filmmaking. It's a shame squares like Philip Adams are, as I said, fucking squares. And, of course, Mad Max is also influential in pioneering the dreaded, this is where Adams may have had a point and he didn't realise it, dreaded torture porn subgenre, its closing ultimatum moment being the inspiration for Saw, one of Australia's least respected imports both here and internationally. James Wan is a worthless hack sad to see. I also read that Stephen King, the author, who I talked about recently of The Green Mile Upload, he called this one a turkey upon its release, despite the post-apocalyptic genre being perfected by Miller and not King, despite his major pretensions otherwise. I like The Stand, but Dark Tower wasn't as good as he thought. I guess it's not post-apocalyptic fiction in a way, but whatever, move on. Stephen King says, no, this film goes too far. I don't know if he said that, but like, as I like, this is a turkey, but like, he thought that scene in it was fine, and you know what scene I'm talking about. I read that scene when I was like 11 or 12. I was like, what the fuck is this? This is repugnant. God, I felt fucking unclean reading that. This is a grown up trying to do some nasty shit to me. Anyway, George Miller, he's the opposite of James Wan. and we will demonstrate this on this program over the next 5 shows. We've discussed Fury Road before. Go check that out if you want to learn my further thoughts on that one. But now let's conclude our piece on Mad Max 79 and move on to a major Australian cliche, and really, all things considered, maybe might be our truly best film if we're being truthful. Tune in then, mates. It'll be sublime.